What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, it seems like undefeated three-division world champion, former junior welterweight, undisputed world champion, currently the WBO welterweight world champion, who is widely considered by many to be the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the world, Terence "Bud" Crawford, is going to land his dream fight in 8-division world champion, legendary, iconic Filipino superstar boxer Manny "Pac-Man" Pacquiao. With that said, this is a fight that Terence Crawford has been trying to secure for the better part of 6 years, when both guys were under the same promotional banner with legendary promoter, top-ranked CEO and promoter Bob Arum. Bob Arum, he played a part in Terence Crawford not securing this fight. Also, Manny Pacquiao, didn't seem too eager to want to step in the ring with Terence "Bud" Crawford. So now the reports have surfaced that Terence Crawford and Manny Pacquiao are scheduled to showdown June 5th of 2021, and it's looking like it's going to be overseas. With that said, it's going to be, according to Bob Arum, an 80-20 split in favor of Manny Pacquiao, splitting a $50 million pot, with $40 million going to Manny Pacquiao, $10 million going to Terence Crawford. With that stated, Terence Crawford recently, he stated that the fight, which is considered the super fight, because see, this is an accomplishment and a goal for Terence Crawford individually, but the super fight in the sport of boxing is Terence Crawford versus undefeated unified WBC IBF welterweight world champion superstar boxer Errol Spence Jr., who seems to possibly be on the verge of facing off against WBA super world champion welterweight Cuban star boxer Yordenis Ugas in a unification bout sometime in July. I'm hearing that it could be around July 3rd. July 4th falls on a Sunday, so that seems like a possibility. But obviously, things are subject to change, and these are all reports. So with that said, Errol Spence is going to be the favorite against Yordenis Ugas. The super fight is Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford. Now, the fact that Errol Spence is going to fight Yordenis Ugas, seeing as though Manny Pacquiao has been inactive for the better part of 2 years, in the WBA, they ended up stripping Manny Pacquiao due to inactivity. So with that said, Yordenis Ugas, who was the regular champion, Manny Pacquiao, he defeated former unified WBC, WBA welterweight world champion superstar boxer Keith one-time Thurman, who Terence Crawford at one point in time deemed the man to beat at welterweight. Manny Pacquiao beat him. That's the only blemish on Keith Thurman's resume. And after Manny Pacquiao beat Keith Thurman, he's been inactive. That was July of 2019. But also Keith Thurman has been inactive. Both guys have been inactive. Obviously, we're dealing with a global pandemic, so that put a lot of things on the shelf. So with that said, the WBA, they informed Manny Pacquiao that he would need to fight a guy in the top 10 ranking system in order to maintain and retain the WBA title. He was seemed to have focused on a UFC legendary iconic superstar Conor McGregor, but that fell through when Conor McGregor was knocked out in his highly anticipated rematch with Dustin Poirier. And then there was reports that he could face off against undefeated rising lightweight Mexican superstar title contender King Ryan Garcia. Well, that proved not to be true as well. Then reports surfaced that Manny Pacquiao could face 4-division world champion Mexican superstar boxer Mikey Garcia in his next fight. Now, what's interesting about that is Mikey Garcia is ranked number 4 in the WBA ranking system. So that would have been deemable for the WBA. But instead, Manny Pacquiao seems to have chosen Terence Crawford. But in the meantime, the WBA, they said that Manny Pacquiao was indecisive. They needed to move forward, so they elevated the WBA regular champion, Yordenis Ugas, to super champion. With all of this said, the super fight still remains Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence. And Errol Spence is going to be a bigger odds-on favorite against Yordenis Ugas than Terence Crawford is going to be against Manny Pacquiao. There's a lot of people that feel like this is the biggest step up in Terence Crawford's career. This is going to obviously be the biggest name and the biggest fight of Terence Crawford's career. And people feel like that Manny Pacquiao once again can turn back the hands of time and defeat Terence Crawford. I for one, am not one of those people. I believe that Terence Crawford's style, his versatility, his power, his ferociousness, and his eagerness to close the show is going to be too much for Manny Pacquiao. Not to mention, he has a high ring IQ and very good, should I say, great boxing, pure boxing ability. And he's very rangy. I stand at 5'8" with a 74-inch arm reach, and he's youthful, 33. Manny Pacquiao stands at 5'5" with a 67-inch arm reach, and he's 42. Manny Pacquiao always struggled with pure boxers that were rangy, a la Floyd Mayweather, Eric Morales, guys of that nature. They gave him a lot of trouble, and counterpunchers gave Manny Pacquiao a lot of trouble. Juan Manuel Marquez for 4 fights, okay? Terence Crawford is all of those things. He's a good counterpuncher. He's a closer. He's very versatile. He can switch from southpaw to orthodox fluidly. So I highly expect Terence Crawford to win this fight. With that said, that still makes for the super fight between Terence Crawford and Errol Spence. At that point in time, they will be back-to-back months. So if this fight takes place June 5th, a month later, July 3rd, we'll have Errol Spence and Yordenis Ugas. Like I said, Yordenis Ugas, he's a good fighter, but he will not be able to withstand what Errol Spence is going to dish out. He's not as versatile as Errol Spence. He's not, as pure a boxer as Errol Spence. So Errol Spence is going to win the fight. That's making him 3-belt holder. He would then hold the WBA, the WBC, and the IBF. 1 belt missing, which would be that super fight between himself and Terence Crawford for Terence Crawford's WBO title. Now we know they've been going back and forth via social media when Errol Spence stated that if Terence Crawford wanted to make the fight, 60-40 would get it done. Terence Crawford was having none of it. He said it has to be 50-50, okay? Now, Terence Crawford, he stated, look all the things I accomplished in my career. I'm a 3-division champion. I was undisputed. I'm highly more accomplished than Errol Spence Jr. in his short career. So that just leads me to believe that Terence Crawford beats Manny Pacquiao. Terence Crawford is definitely going to be riding a high horse and feeling as if he definitely deserves a 50-50 split or more. He even once stated that 60-40 needs to be in his favor. Now, with that said, Terence Crawford also stated that if it wasn't for his family and the people that he have to provide for, he would have been done with the sport of boxing. So that leaves the people to question, if Terence Crawford is satisfied with finally securing this fight that has long been eluding him with the Manny Pacquiao fight, he secures it, defeats Manny Pacquiao. Terence Crawford at that point in time is going to get the biggest payday of his career. He already feels like he's a Hall of Famer. He already feels like his legacy is cemented. This is just going to be on the cherry on the top. And I don't believe that Terence Crawford is going to be feeling any eagerness to get in the ring with Errol Spence. Nor is he going to feel pressure to do so, because he's already established and let it be known that he's already accomplished, well accomplished, and he's already a Hall of Famer, and he don't need Errol Spence. So this means the super fight that the boxing world has been waiting for can elude us forever. Now, the thing is, if Manny Pacquiao was to win this fight, I believe that Manny Pacquiao will go into an undisputed showdown with Errol Spence Jr. because it's another huge payday for Manny Pacquiao, and it's a way for him to be able to finance himself and his campaign to become president in the Philippines, okay? So I believe he'll take one more fight. Manny Pacquiao loses to Terence Crawford. I believe Manny Pacquiao is going to retire. The issue with this is Terence Crawford beating Manny Pacquiao. The super fight that the world awaits may not ever happen. Now, Terence Crawford, he did say he wanted to fight Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman only has 1 loss on his resume. Is it possible that Terence Crawford may retire? Or maybe he feels so much accomplished that he just says, listen, I'll fight Keith Thurman, for big money. He's going to feel like he's a megastar now. He's going to tap in a whole different demographic of fan base when he fights Manny Pacquiao. So he's going to feel like a superstar, even bigger megastar than he already is. Not to mention, this fight is going to be successful. Keith Thurman and Manny Pacquiao did 500,000 pay-per-view buys. I'm expecting this fight to do at least 400,000 pay-per-view buys. He's going to get the biggest payday of his career. It's going to do huge pay-per-view numbers. His live gate is going to be a success. And so Terence Crawford is not going to feel the need to fight Errol Spence Jr. So we may see Terence Crawford retire without ever fighting Errol Spence Jr. Errol Spence is 31. Terence Crawford will be 34 years of age in September. So that leads me to believe that Terence Crawford definitely is going to back up the words that he stated when he said he don't need Errol Spence Jr. and that fight is past him. He stated that he's no longer interested in Errol Spence Jr. A 50-50 split won't get a deal done for him and Errol Spence Jr. And he's past that fight. He informed his team and everybody else around him that he's no longer interested in that fight. Now we can get top-ranked CEO and promoter Terence Crawford, Bob Arum, should he secure Terence Crawford moving forward after October, because he's a free agent in October. Should he get him to re-sign, maybe he could get Terence Crawford to a point where he say, you need this big fight, we need this big fight to be able to reimburse our networks who's financing us, behind us, backing us, to pay off that, repay them. Because ESPN will eventually call for Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, especially should Terence Crawford get past Manny Pacquiao. I don't see ESPN wanting to put up big money for Terence Crawford versus Sean Porter and Keith Thurman at that point. They're going to be looking for the biggest fights possible. And the Errol Spence fight is the biggest fight. So is it possible that we could see Terence Crawford just, be satisfied and just be pushing forward with Keith Thurman and Sean Porter fights? Or would he retire, call it quits, and we have to see Errol Spence face the winner of Sean Porter, who is the two-time welterweight world champion, who's the #1 WBO challenger and mandatory challenger for Terence Crawford's WBO title. And then you have undefeated Mexican superstar title contender Virgil Ortiz Jr., who's #2 and vying for that position as well. If Terence Crawford was to call it a career and retire, his belt will become vacant. Thus, we'll see Sean Porter and Virgil Ortiz fight for the vacant belt. And then Errol Spence will have to fight the winner of that fight, a rematch with Sean Porter, which was a very close, exciting fight, or an all-Texas showdown with fellow Texan Virgil Ortiz Jr., who they came up, in the same gyms and things of that nature. So they're very familiar with one another, for undisputed in Errol Spence's favor. So we got to see how this unfolds. Terence Crawford seems to be on the verge of landing his dream fight with Manny Pacquiao. Hopefully, we could get a fight between Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. But there's a strong possibility that Terence Crawford may retire or may just never face Errol Spence Jr. But that's all I got for y'all. Make sure you hit the like button. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue, Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. You haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Raw. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.
Hi, my name is Heather the Heat Hardy, and you're watching Blue Blood Sports TV.